So I think this topic is worth discussing because now, as I'm a pretty serious comic book reader and collector, there's been a lot of rumor and talk, especially from Marvel, on several points. One of them being that Marvel is talking a lot about wanting to reboot, and a lot of that having to do with DC Universe's Rebirth line that came out. I want to say mid spring at the absolute earliest of last year. And since then, DC has been completely dominating comic book sales, bar none. I think it has been completely one sided ever since. I don't think Marvel has claimed a top spot ever since. It's been very, very one sided. And Marvel obviously needs to do what they can to recoup their losses. And they've been toying with the notion of wanting to reboot their franchise in order to restore glory to their comics once again. Clearly aiming towards like the very early era of Marvel Comics, like the Jack Kirby area, like very like Stanley area, like basically when Marvel was Marvel and when the characters were still new and fresh. Because one of the problems Marvel is having now is that a lot of their characters are very, very old. They're not really generating any new buzz, and Marvel's biggest problem right now is the fact that they cannot make a storyline relevant. They are focusing way too much on like interpromotional issues. They're focusing way too much on political aspects of their stories. Like it doesn't really feel like there's enough character centered focus on their stories anymore. It's more plot derivative, but you lose sight of what the character is. Like that Marvel in and of itself, when they started really doing the superhero movies, you have to really ask yourself, do you remember the plot or do you remember how badass the movies were? The first Iron Man movie, very simple, right to the point. They did an amazing job. The first Spider-Man movie, even very cartoony, but you remember it and people still like it. Movies like that, you're focused on the character, you're focused on the origin, and you're focused on the immediate consequences of said actions. Anyways, would it really benefit Marvel to reboot its universe? I honestly think yes. The stories at this point have really been drawn out. They don't have as much potential as they did to begin with. We're talking about a series that a lot of these series have been running since like the 20s and 30s. The problem Marvel's having right now is that it's not focusing on the narrative, it's focusing on the plot, and that's what DC is doing right now really well with its current lines. It basically went back to the drawing board, went back to pre-52 base characters, and just so you know, the whole Rebirth line is essentially a giant "we messed up" memo to the fans from DC. And this is our way of paying it back. So, with that being said, I honestly think it'd be in Marvel's best interest right now to wrap up their storylines and discontinue any other stories. And the reason I'm saying that is for several reasons. Number one, nothing they have right now has immediate staying power. Almost next to nothing. I'm only reading 2, maybe 3 series for Marvel, and even if they concluded it now, they could still recap their losses and restart over again. Imagine the possibilities. And that's my number 2 thing. Imagine the possibilities of rereading from the beginning characters like Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, the original Avengers, Thor. The list goes on. Can you imagine how amazing that could actually be for readers now? Because let's be honest, Marvel has also handed the gauntlet of several characters over to newer characters. It's very confusing. I'm not going to say it's bad, but I am going to say I'm a little confused at why they're making the decisions that they're making. You can clearly tell that Marvel is, I don't want to say running out of ideas, but I almost think they're on zombie mode at the moment because nothing they're doing is sticking. They've already discontinued several lines because they're not doing well. They received a lot of negative criticism when they announced the new Venom comic they want to put out when the last 2 not done well at all. So in all honesty, I really just think what Marvel should be doing right now, they should go back to the drawing board. They should re-release the all-new series, and I don't know what you want to call it, like Marvel Lives, or Marvel Again, or something like that. And then you start from scratch. You bring your key characters over, and then you build them up, like what DC is doing now. That's the only way they're going to compete. That's the only way they're going to actually dominate in sales. The other point in this is movies. And this is kind of split. I do feel Marvel has a better product when it comes to live action movies. However, when it comes to their animated movies, DC is far superior. I feel like in their animated movies, DC has a little bit more leeway to experiment and stick truer to the source, whereas I feel the Marvel animated movies are specifically crafted for children and teenagers. There's really not a whole lot there for the older, the older comic related crowd, and a lot of the Marvel stuff is getting very, very kiddish. I'll give you a for instance. A lot of the newer Iron Man stuff feels like it was done for a 10-year-old. Meanwhile, when they did the Frank Miller adaptation of The Dark Knight, I believe it's Dark Knight Returns, it was gold. It was dark, it was gritty, it was true to the source. They did this, oh my gosh, they did this like a decade ago. I'm just saying. And then DC's live action movies leave a lot to be desired because apparently the directors have way too much control over the stuff. Hence why the new Batman movie's having a lot of problems, because I'm assuming DC, the writers, and the director are not all on the same page. And Ben Affleck, of course, saying that he will not do the role if he does not agree with the script. So he wants to make sure the character is given the due diligence that it is very well needed. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents in the matter. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I honestly would love a Marvel Rebirth line, quote unquote, just to see what they can do. I would love to reread some of the origins of all of these great characters over again. I really think it could do it well. And then, run it for about a year or two, and, you can continue on some of the older plot lines. But I definitely think Marvel is exhausting a lot of their options, and it's time to explore new opportunities. So, with all of that being said, you keep reading.